Welcome. Today we are joined by Barb Horner, a dedicated advocate with the Disability Rights Coalition of Nova Scotia. Barb has been a powerful voice pushing for the rights and inclusion of people with disabilities. Today she will share her story as a mother and advocate whose journey has helped shape inclusion and inspire real change.
My name is Barb Horner. I'm a parent, and I was a founding member of the DRC. But to understand that, I have to give you a little bit of history. And I think it starts back to when my family moved to Nova Scotia in 1989, when there were very little supports for families at that time. Nova Scotia has always had a heavy reliance on institutions for adults, children, and youth. And so when we moved here, we were told that our daughter, who was 4.5 years old, could either reside at home with us for $52.50 a month, or she could move into the Dartmouth Children's Training Center. And so there were very little options for us as a family. And there's always been a disconnect with how government funds buildings, places rather than families, because at the time, the per diem rate for the CTC was approximately $200 a day for Mallory to live there. And so my education, my journey really started with the experience that we had when Mallory was at the training center for 3.5 years, how we were treated as parents, what we witnessed there for her, which was very little training. It was ward sleeping. We saw children tied to toilets, lined up naked for showers. It wasn't a pleasant environment, and it was a really difficult time for us as a family. So my lifelong passion to close institutions really started at that point. So along with the adult institutions in Nova Scotia, as I mentioned, there were the 4 children's training centers and the Truro Youth Training Center, which was considered a live-in school for youth at that time. The announcement to close the 4 children's training centers happened in the early 90s. As a family, we were ecstatic for that announcement. And then the Youth Truro Training Center followed shortly after that. So, of course, there was a huge uproar from unions, from families who used the training centers. And so a huge education piece had to happen province-wide so that we could so other families could learn about what could be possible for their kids. And also a lot of families use the training centers as respite care. But they supported within the 4 training centers in the 4 different areas of the province, they supported less than 100 people. So when the announcement came, and as the CTCs were closing one at a time, community options then started to open up for families. And the Family Support Program came to be, which offered more funding for families, and it helped and supported families who had always had their children at home, which was really important, that we were starting to broaden those services. Where the 4 training centers were, that 4 respite programs were developed to continue to support families further. And once that happened, there was then nothing. There was no expansion. There was no more community development. And all families knew over the years was to get on a wait list with very few options other than segregated services, both for day programs and for living. There have been many reports written over the years, commissioned by government and nonprofits, but 2 significant reports stand out. The Kendrick report that came out in 2001, and then the roadmap that followed in 2013 that started a movement within the disability community. So the history to that is that DCS, Department of Community Services, hired Dr. Michael Kendrick to research and provide recommendations in a report about their community-based options system. And so Michael went above and beyond his mandate. He had held consultations throughout the province, and he brought together family members, people first, community-based organizations, service providers, both day program services as well as residential service providers. It was a really diverse group, and we came together many times. And even though we all had our own priorities, it was identified by everyone that was present that the system was very broken, and we knew that we could fundamentally do better. And there was a desire by everyone present to do better. There was a lot of collective wisdom, knowledge, and experience in the room. And Michael got us really excited about what could be possible. So the Kendrick Report, as it was called, came out in 2001. It was ignored. Nothing was implemented. And because Michael had brought this greater community together in his research phase, the community came out in force to support the recommendations in his report. And so when nothing happened, the Kendrick Report Coalition was born. We came together as over 30 organizations, family members, that represented the coalition. We met monthly. There was always approximately 20 to 30 people around the table on a monthly basis for many years. We were very politically active, holding marches at the legislature, speaking up at the House, met with MLAs, did media and sponsored workshops, often with Michael present facilitating. Sometime around when the UN Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities was introduced in 2006 and then ratified in 2010 by Canada, the Kendrick Report Coalition changed our name to the Disability Rights Coalition to focus more on human rights, and continued and remained very politically active. And then we came to another report that is referred to as the roadmap, which again, government commissioned, spent money on the research. The recommendations in the roadmap very much followed Michael Kendrick's recommendations, but we got the same response for government. It was not implemented, and it was ignored. So in 2014, DRC, Disability Rights Coalition, was asked to join a human rights complaint. 3 individuals, Joey, Sheila, and Beth, filed a complaint due to their incarceration at Emerald Hall at the Nova Scotia Hospital, where they were held for many years and being denied community living. And so DRC filed a second complaint based on systemic discrimination in Nova Scotia for persons with disabilities. So after more than 30 years of public discussion and successive government reports recommending community inclusion and deinstitutionalization, the Nova Scotia government was unwilling to develop and transform their current system and continued to rely on institutions with no new community development since the children's training centers closed in the 90s. So in 2019, it was found that this government did discriminate against Joey, Beth, and Sheila, and they were awarded financial compensation. In 2019, the same year, the government dismissed the systemic discrimination filed by the Disability Rights Coalition. We appealed that case, and after 8 years, in 2021, 2021, it was found that the government was indeed guilty of systemic discrimination, which has led us to the human rights remedy. And I think the important thing is that we are finally families are finally going to be recognized as the important people that they are for the people that they love. It means that there's going to be more respect, a better understanding. It's going to transform the system in Nova Scotia. But important to note that families still have a responsibility to collectively come together and learn as much as we can. There's so much power in collective advocacy and when we have a voice. And this moment in time is historical and filled with so much opportunity for choice and control that families and their loved ones will now have. It will forever change the lives of families like never before in Nova Scotia. Families will be filled with hope, and parents will be supported to encourage to really plan positively for the future rather than living in fear of what's next. And families will really be able to dream about the possibilities and then see those dreams become a reality. Inclusion Nova Scotia has the gift of supporting families and walking alongside them in this brand new world that we're going to be figuring out together. We will support families to learn about what is possible and share their successes and tell their stories. Our stories are so important. Every generation of families paves a pathway for the rest of us. I wouldn't be where I am today as a parent and an advocate if it wasn't for the families and parents who supported me coming up. And I think that the legacy that we will be leaving for future families because of the remedy and the work of Inclusion Nova Scotia is going to be critical. So be proud and dream big.